The BIPOC Coach Collective proudly presents Elevate and Celebrate. This is a podcast to showcase our members, dive deeper into their journeys, and express who they are into the world. Our mission is to curate a brave and authentic space for coaches to connect and to elevate our voices globally in the coaching profession. Learn more about us at bipoccc.org. Your story matters, your voice matters. Let's start the show. Welcome to the latest and greatest episode of Elevate and Celebrate. This is your host, Vice President of the BIPOC Coach Collective, Alex Dumas, and I am excited to share with you our upcoming guest. Her name is Krystal Vernee. She is a serial entrepreneur for over 20 years as a leader, as an author, as a coach, as a speaker. We're going to dive into the various businesses that she has, whether it's been online or brick and mortar, and she's going to share with you her philosophy, her brand, built her blueprint about creating systems, about scaling, about the way to operate sales and several other things. So stay tuned for that. This is going to be an amazing opportunity for you to really jot down some notes, right? I talk about this like every episode. Get a pen in your hand, be present, and see how this is going to impact your business. And for those of you who are our champion members, this week we are hosting a new facilitation call. We're going to have Lauren Dyke on as our guest speaker, and we're going to talk about our nervous system co-regulation, right? So it's important for not only us as coaches, but for our clients to really look at how to regulate ourselves and how to get aligned and centered and grounded. And I think that's going to be a great call for you to be on. So if you're one of our champion members, you have access to that. And if you aren't a champion member at this time, there's still time to get a membership. And if you're kind of wondering, oh, why should I? Then we have an opportunity for you to get a little bit more exposure and experience of us. So April 25th, that's Friday, 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock Eastern time. We're having our monthly open house. So register for that. You can find that on our website on the events page, bipoccc.org/events. We'd love to have you. And if you are attending, bring a friend. Who doesn't want to? Why show to a party and just be by yourself? Like, bring some friends with you. This is going to be a family style environment where we're going to have some fun and also have you walk away with maybe potential 1 or 2 tools that you can use to grow your businesses. So all that said and done, let's get into this episode right now. Folks, we're back here with Elevate and Celebrate. I'm your host, Alex Dumas, and I'm here with our esteemed guest, Krystal Vernee. Krystal, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So I laid it out in the intro. You'll see it once this thing is finally put together. Like, I'd like to do like intros for, I guess, beforehand, but here's the quick snapshot, and we're going to dive into a bunch of this, right? You're an author, you're a speaker, you're a coach, you have 20 years of experience as an entrepreneur. And what's interesting is about this, we're going to get into the businesses in a minute, but you're an engineer by trade, which was like fascinating for me. So let's start there. Engineer, entrepreneur. How did that happen?
Well, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 16. So before I ever chose a major, before I chose engineering, I chose business first. So, so I started an eBay store like back when eBay was first taking off, like it's like 2001. And I was selling vintage and designer handbags. And because I was really into fashion in high school, like, brand name stuff. And I made $16,000 my first month in business. Yep. And my mother was like, no, because nobody's gonna be making money on the internet. This is a fluke. You're going to college. You're going to college. So I shut down the store. And I went to college and I got an engineering degree. I've always been really good at math and science, programming, robotics. So engineering was like the most logical path, but I always knew that I wanted to have a business of some kind, not necessarily engineering related. And right out of college, I got a sales job because I figured, I want to be in business, got to get better at sales because I was like completely terrible at sales.
When you say terrible, how terrible is terrible? Because I don't know if anybody
Uh,
could be as bad as I was when I was initially in sales.
well, so I was the kid where we had, they had the school fundraiser when you're in elementary. My
Right.
mom just bought all the candy because I was like, I don't want to talk to people. That's no, we're not going to do that.
Mm,
But I so even though like, eBay was online, so I'd have to talk to people. But I was like, I know I'm gonna have to talk to people to sell things in my business. So let me go into sales. And I wasn't bad at it. I just had to find my style, especially as a woman, definitely against like the bro selling. That's what
right.
they teach you, but that's not how I learned to sell. So it's very interesting and kind of just crafting my own style and now incorporating that into my business even today.
That's amazing. And I'm still interested in like diving back here. So you've had this mindset for business, right? Like who inspired that? Like where did that come from? Because that's I don't want to say that's not normal, but when you grow up, you think, all right, I'm just gonna go to school, right? The traditional path, go to school, get a job, work, get married, die, and that's that's life. That
Yes, there was definitely a lot of that. My family's very traditional. But this came from my dad. So my dad was an entrepreneur. He's no longer with us, but he had a limousine company when I was young. So he was in LA. He was driving around all the big stars like Whitney Houston, Bobby Brown, New Kids on the Block, like just everybody back in the 90s, everybody, like anybody you could think of. He had three limos, I think three or four limos. And he just made his own schedule. He also did truck driving, so he did both. So he was a serial entrepreneur also. And I was daddy's little girl, so he was just like, daughter, you're not gonna want to work for anybody. He was like, don't work on your birthday. He had all these different things that he was telling me. That at the time I was like, man, like I wasn't really listening, but I was listening at the same time and paying attention. And I think back to some of those moments where he gave me advice or told me I need to start my own company. Or he was always very big in education. My dad was very smart. He was in the Air Force. If I went to the military, that was the only service I would be allowed to do. Um, but yeah, I mean, he just was like, you need to get an education, and then after that, you should look into your own business. And that was always his thing. He had a way to go about it. Which was very interesting. But he inspired me from a very early age to look into entrepreneurship.
right, wonderful. Yeah, and so to him, and condolences, right? It's never easy losing a parent, right? My father's still around. Unfortunately, my mother passed. She's been now about 10 years since she's been gone, but it's
Yeah.
what it is. It's part of life.
Hmm.
What I want to dive into now is these different companies that you run, right? And one of the things that you shared with me is that your focus is really helping people create multiple streams of income. And you've been, and I love that you're an example of that. You demonstrate that you practice what you preach, right? You have Simply She, you have the the brand Build Her blueprint. You also have Divas and Dolls Fitness. So all these different hats, your hands on these different pots. So walk me through these businesses and like and who you serve in this capacity.
Yeah, so I'll start with Divas and Dolls because that's the longest running business. We turned 10 last year.
All right.
So yeah, thank you.
Congrats.
Turned 10. So that's my pole and central dance studio in Temple Hills, Maryland. I've been doing that. I've been dancing for probably over 12 years, but the studio is about 10 years old. That studio is primarily for women. It's a way for us to get fit, to feel empowered, and just to become the best version of ourselves. So, um, I have that business. I also have Cirque Sensual, which is a sensual aerial dance brand. That's a sister brand to my studio. So both of them are run out of the same place. And that is more Circus Olay style.
Okay.
And it's focused on not only performing, so like at corporate events and things like that, but bringing aerial arts to the Black and Brown community. Um, so putting us in a space where you don't normally see us because of our body type and things like that. Like you don't normally see a lot of Black and Brown aerialists because most people are like 99 pounds. Like that's that, that's the truth. People can say what they want, but that's really the truth. And they don't look to hire us as much. So just letting people know that it's possible. You can do all the cool things you've seen in the circus. We can do it too. And so just making it accessible for people and giving them a safe space to learn. Um, and I'm also very passionate about performance. So putting on shows, we do that too. And then, of course, there's my coaching business, Simply She, which is Simply Slay Hard Every Day. And that is primarily focused on empowering women in entrepreneurship. So teaching them the foundations that they need in order to build a profitable and sustainable business, and showing them really what multiple income streams is all about, but also getting them out of the feast and famine mode of just like doing these launches or just like releasing random things and not really having a true strategy behind their business and how to drive it forward. So elevating people to that CEO, empower CEO or visionary role so they can be more strategic and really build a life that they love based upon that. Um, and then there's my personal brand, Krystal Vernee. So I brand myself personally as a coach, an author, a speaker. And then the brand builder blueprint is kind of like under Simply She. That is a coaching program, a podcast, and a TV show. So I educate people through my podcast and my show. And then my coaching program, of course, is to help entrepreneurs reach that multi six figure, seven figure mark. And just, be well, not be, but create a life that they love, whether that's with their family or travel or a mix of those things. But just showing women that they can do it because the average salary for a woman owned business in the US is about $30,000 a year. Um, and compared to men, it's like 80,000. So like we're still behind the eight ball. And just I really want to just show people that it's possible, number one, because people think that it's like only a few people could make it to that threshold, and that's not true. But you really can. It's going to take some work, but you can make it to the other side, and you can have the time freedom and life that you want.
Yeah, well, so thank you for sharing that. And there's a couple of things I want to unpack there, right? With even that's just that wage disparity, that wage gap. I think sometimes entrepreneurs get caught up in, I need to get like six figures like right away. That's a great uh, aspiration, but when you think about it, an extra 2,000, $2,500 a month is life changing, right?
Mhm.
Just to breathe, relax, and you get to grow into it. And obviously, you want to expand, you want to diversify. But for wherever you are as a coach, as a leader, hey, you are where you are, like bring that in consistently and watch the rest pile up, right? Um, and something you said, I really latched onto. You said a life that you love, right? And you said it a couple of times, and I'm curious, was that something that your father had kind of uh, passed down to you as far as like that mentality, like, hey, don't chase the money, but chase like the lifestyle, chase the experience you want to have and create. Is that something that he was kind of responsible
Um,
for, or like where did you pick that up from?
well, I think part of that's from my dad because he had his little rules about not working on your birthday and
Mm.
and taking time off, and but that's not really how he said it to me. I think that really came through just life experience and um thinking about what it is that I actually wanted versus what other people might have wanted for me. So that included my family, my mom, my dad, that included my ex-husband, friends, anybody that what they saw projected on my life wasn't necessarily what Krystal wanted. And so just being really clear about that and standing in that. Because I think a lot, especially women, we get caught up in what society wants us to do. Like you said before, supposed to go to school, get a good job, get married, have 2.5 kids and a dog. What do
And
I,
the fence,
a
you can't
big
forget the
house?
fence.
Yeah.
The
What do I
fence
pick a
has got to
fence?
be there.
Like what, two and a half cars,
Right.
and then that's it. That's what you're supposed to do. And is that really the life that you love, or is that what we're told we're supposed to do? And so all my life, I feel like I've probably been a little bit of a disruptor, maybe just a disruptor, and doing things differently. Like my family, they're from the South, so they're all educators, all teachers. So that was what they thought. I was going to go get this big degree that costs a lot of money to go into the classroom because they knew nothing about any other type of profession. But that was what was acceptable for their time. And I was like, well, nope, I'm not about to do that. I'm gonna go and do what I want to do. And it's like, well, I got all these questions like, do engineers make money? What is that? What are you gonna do? Like, and I'm just like, yeah, like I have to. From a very early age, I knew that I was gonna have to just do what I wanted to do, including travel. Like, I like to travel out of the country. Um, have lots of different experiences, eat lots of different foods. And it was like, yeah, why do you want to do that? And then there became
Right.
and then there became a time where it's like, now I travel alone. And like, oh my God, is that scary? Are you scared? I'm like, if I walk around scared, like I'll never do anything. And so just having the courage, even though it might be scary, to create those new experiences for yourself and step outside of the mold, and do things a little bit differently. So I think that just came through life experience and not living my life that way and how I felt versus now.
So Bojangles is not going to cut it for you every day. You gotta
Chicken nuggets and French fries and hot dogs just don't do it. Sorry, I can't.
filet mignon is this is how we do. We use a fork. No, I'm not teasing. I joke, I kid, but I love that you see the opportunity, you see it for yourself. Like, hey, this is the path, and to make any difference in the world, right? It takes a deviation. It takes, honestly, no pun intended, being the black sheep of the family
Yeah.
and answering those questions and then backing it up with results. Because I
Yep.
think it's easy for family, friends to be like, oh, well, how's that little business going, right? Those kind of
Oh yeah.
questions, those little
Still.
subliminal digs. I was like, are we
Still.
still doing that thing?
Yeah. It's still open? Like what? Like I'm just like, yep, I'm just quiet about it. I don't even I think there's who you can engage with and who you can't. And that was another lesson learned is like your dreams aren't to be shared with everyone. And that was a hard lesson learned for me. And I pass that on to anybody that I coach or mentor now. Like, you know, God gives you the vision, He doesn't give it to everybody. That likewise, your dreams aren't meant to be shared with everybody. And not that people have a malintent all the time, but it's maybe something they don't even recognize that they're doing, because they're uncomfortable. You make them uncomfortable. And if you continue to move in a certain way, you will always make people uncomfortable. But who won't be uncomfortable are the people who are like, truly elevating you and like really supposed to be in your circle and, they're where you want to be. They're going to always be like, go higher.
Yeah.
And so that's who you want to surround yourself with.
Yeah, that's something that I preach about from the stage with thinking about our networks, our environment. Who are the people that are supporting us? Who are the people that are nurturing us? Who are the people that are challenging us? Because it could be one thing to be like, wow, you did this, great job, just keep going. But other people like, hey, you're here. Can you see what's possible if you like just ramp this up a little bit, not to burn you out or not to to belittle you, but it's like, man, there's so much out there. There's more than enough, right? I really believe in, in our company, abundance is your birthright. Like it's everywhere. It's available for all of us. And speaking about your clients, you touched on them a little bit. Walk me through, these women who maybe they don't have entrepreneurial backgrounds, like the women you coach. Like what have you seen like those common recurring things that are like you're coaching them, you're doing your best to empower, inspire them, and they're like, Krystal, I don't know, that's you did that, but I don't know if I can, right? Like, what about me? So, what does that conversation look like when they're essentially being their own resistance? They're getting in their own way.
Yeah.
I see
So
you laughing.
that,
You're like, oh, yeah,
yeah, well, first, I usually have folks who are multi-talented, multi-passionate that come to me. So when they usually come to me, they have lots of different things and ideas all in their head. And they're trying to get them out. So that's the first thing. But one of the first things that I start with is a challenge. And the challenge is you're going to have to be okay with or comfortable with doing the things that you don't like and don't want to do to get to where you want to be. And I tell like people don't necessarily understand it at first, but I try to give as many examples and analogies as I can. Like, okay, now we're an entrepreneur. Like, did you have a 9 to 5 before? And most people will say yes. I'm like, okay, so in your 9 to 5, how many jobs did you have? And they're like, I had one job. I said, uh-huh. Yep. Okay. What was your job? And they tell me what their job was. I said, well, you're an entrepreneur now, right? They're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm like, okay. Well, congratulations. Now you have 8 jobs. Now you are sales, marketing, HR, finance, legal. I was like, operations. Name another part of the organization. I was like, you name it. That's you right now as a solopreneur. And so if it feels hard, that is correct. Like that is correct. So yeah, that this is where we are. And you have to understand that you won't always do this forever, but to get to where you want to be, these are the functions that you're gonna have to do. And of course, as a solopreneur, you don't need HR not right away, but just note that like you're gonna have to kind of do that first in order to be able to get to where you want to be, especially the sales and marketing part, the part that we a lot of women especially shy away from. I'm like, you got to get pretty good at that because to hire somebody, you got to know what success looks like. And if you don't know what success looks like to make a successful sale, you don't have a sales process down, we're going to be in trouble all the time. You're going to be dependent on somebody to run your sales and marketing. What if they're not doing it ethically, which is a real big thing, especially in the online space? And then what if they quit or they have to take leave and you don't know what to do? So there's that. And then I think the other thing that makes people uncomfortable are systems and having those things in place. And like, okay, I say sales process for a reason. I'm not just saying it because it's a buzzword. I'm like, you need a process. So what are steps 1 through 5 or 10 or whatever that we do every single time? Because you said you don't want to do it forever, right? You got to have something to train somebody on, right? So getting them in that mindset of like, it's going to be different, it's going to be challenging. Are you ready to put in the work? And oh, by the way, usually, I guess we call it like maybe the top 1%. Usually, someone's really good at the left or the right brain, so like logic or creative. Not a lot of people can do both. And I think that's where visionaries excel. They can actually do both. They see the logic in what they have to do, but they also are creative and they can take their business to the next step. A lot of people can't do that, or it's very hard. I think it's a learned skill. So people are natural; they are natural at it, but it's still learned in terms of honing it. And I tell people like, look, you want to do the creative stuff. You want to make the logos, do the flyers, and make things look all pretty, and or you want to show up in your zone of genius, right? Whatever you're doing, whether you're a health coach or a career coach or whatever you do, social media, like you want to show up there. However, there's this whole logical piece that makes your systems, your business work in the background that you're missing. And that's why you're not able to see the success that you want. I was like, you need both. And that's where I like kind of help clients bring that together because I do have that logic piece. That's how my brain works. I am a left brain person, like by design. The creativity part, I've worked really hard to like hone that in and like really live in that space, which is why you see the dancing, which is why you see like some of the different things going on with my brand that you're like, that kind of doesn't, those are two different things. Yes, they are. And I love that for me. So trying to marry that for other people to let them know that like, it's okay to like one thing over the other, but you need both for your business to excel. And this is how you kind of like hire, when it comes to that stage, it's like you hire for your weaknesses, like where do you need the most help, but you got to do both. And getting people to understand that sometimes can be difficult. Like that's the first challenge, is like, look, I know you don't like it, but you got to do it. So are we on the same page in that we believe that we have to do it? If we believe that, then I can absolutely help you. If you're like, nope, I just want to make logos and do offers all day, that's all I want to do, it's like, well, you are going to be in that 90% of businesses that fail. And I'm very honest. I'm a very blunt person. I don't sugarcoat things because I want to know the truth myself. So I'm like, look, you're going to be in that statistic if you're not listening to what I'm saying.
I felt it. Like I heard Coach Krystal voice came out like, oh man, I got to straight like, yeah, yes, yes, ma'am. Like I'm, I do want to do this. No, no, but I love that because it's tough love and it's reality. It's a real reality check because not to be funny, but like in your employee world, right, you're relying on the salary check. Now you need the reality check of like what's involved in this, right? You are the face of this. You are a person who's you're driving the ship, right? It's like building a boat. You gotta
Hmm.
carve the wood, you gotta scrape it, you gotta paint it, you gotta know the mechanics and be able to know, oh, how do I actually work this compass? And where are we going? And how do I do that until you're float, so to speak, and then you can actually be like, man, I need some help. I need a somebody to swap the deck, right? Getting pirate talk right now, but I love the thing you said about systems because that's something I preach a lot, and I love the acronym for it. Like someone shared with me years ago to save yourself time, energy, money, the
Mm,
system. And
yeah.
most people are, even though we've been programmed through school, like this is how you do it, this is how you show up, 8 to 5 or 8 to 4, whatever school hours are. But when we think about like our own system for our own businesses, that's where like the emotional charge seems to come out like, well, maybe I'm not good enough to do that. And who's gonna like, right? We get into this weird game of like who's not gonna like it. Like it's not your job to think about who's gonna like it. Like who are you serving?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? Like what's the driving you? And then go do it. Don't go execute it. Like what are your
Yeah.
thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think there's you have to be deprogrammed in a lot of ways when it comes to running a business. Like I've been in the corporate space. I still am a government contractor, but I did it for another organization for over 13 years. So I'm not, and I tell everybody, like, your 9 to 5 is not the bane of your existence. It is not lost time. Look at it for what it really is. Like, whatever skill set you're building, with whatever 9 to 5 you have, take that as an asset that you can use inside your business, whether it's the skills you got or whether it's what not to do. Like either way, it's not a bad thing. And also, your 9 to 5 is the best business loan you could ever have because
There
it's
we
one
go.
you don't got to pay back.
There we go.
Like it's the best business loan you could ever have. So I tell people like, look, don't down your 9 to 5 because that's going to be your bridge to your transition to the life that you really want. But you do have to be deprogrammed in the sense of like, okay, it's 5 o'clock, I'm turning the lights off. Like that's not a like you are it. So the buck stops with you when you have a business and like the habits that we build, I would say even from your 9 to 5 and then translate to your business, are extremely important. So like if you can't be on time for your 9 to 5, I'm like 99.9% sure you will not be on time for anything at your business. Like how you do anything is how you do everything, literally. And so people think, oh, because it's mine, it's gonna be different. No. Like you have to like you are still the same person. You didn't like become a different person
Right. It's
overnight
not
because
Clark
you
Kent like
yeah
now on can be oh
like you didn't change personalities, like you're still the same person. So I do think there has to be some deprogramming of like some things that may have worked in a 9 to 5 that now don't necessarily translate over to a business. But I do think there's misinformation in the marketplace about shame behind having a 9 to 5 and you're not getting anything out of it. I think that's completely false because I definitely learned a lot when I did have a full-time job. And I took a lot of those skills set with me into my business. And it ultimately helped me like become a better leader. I had a very large team. I had over 100 people, like, and like uh, directors, managers. So I had a very robust team, and that definitely helped me build my leadership and team building skills, having to be able to have to coach and mentor. But it also gave me a very important perspective and solidified the way that I view people, human capital, which to me is your most important asset in your business, and also leading by example as a leader. Like when I was in corporate, I had done every single job on my team. Most leaders, even my counterparts, had never done that. They could not say that. But that's how I knew and excelled so well. Like my team was like one of the highest performing teams. We got work because of me. Like so, that's the way that I view my team and my business. It's like, okay, I'm never gonna ask you not to do anything that I've never done or that I don't think is possible. It's kind of like, well, no, we can I tried it, can't do it. So I'm not gonna make you figure out a way to do it. That doesn't make any sense. But I say that to say I think there are some valuable things that you can learn from your 9 to 5, but like take what you need, leave what you don't, in that sense when it comes to running your business.
yeah, fantastic. Like church to all of that, right? Because it's the truth. And when I was starting out, I would get embarrassed because I was still working on a full-time job. So I was in the bro marketing phase, like, man, you just gotta like grind through, bro, and just right. And I wouldn't like talk about this because I was like, well, I still have this like thing, and I forget like, oh, all these skills I have, like of managing people, of working tech, of negotiating, sales, customer service, all these things that are crucial, right? These are now elements of core values and elements that are required for my success, right? How
Hmm.
am I treating people? Am I going to tell somebody to do something that I'm not willing to do? I'm not I'm not trying to be a hypocrite or any sense of the word. So authenticity is always the way to go. That's at least been my North Star, has guided me. I want to talk about you as an author, right? Like tell me about book or books and what was the inspiring what inspired you to write?
Yeah, so I think initially, which this book hasn't even come out yet, which is so funny. So initially what inspired me to become an author was going through my divorce. And I wanted to tell my story about my relationship with the narcissist and like growing up um with a narcissist as well. Be my mom, and like just kind of showing people, well, first putting that out there
Yeah,
and letting other people know they're not crazy because you don't learn that word as a kid. And so knowing that things aren't quite right, but you can't put your finger on it was, and then like learning about it later. Um, I just wanted to help other women who might be going through the same thing and just kind of like tell my story, shine my light on it, because like from the outside, nobody would have known. And I think that is, or that was like the thing, like all my friends, my line sisters, they were like, oh my God, like I had no idea you were going through that. Like I would have never guessed that. Like, yeah. And that's the whole point when you're going through something like that. So that was the inspiration behind initially wanting to become an author. And then I shifted and um and I got the opportunity to be in an anthology, Becoming an Unstoppable Woman, with the She Rises Studios, and that book was a chance for me to like just write a chapters anthology. And I
yeah,
was like, I wanted to be an author, but I was like, I have no idea what it entails. And I'm the first person to say, raise my hand and say, I need to hire somebody because I have no idea what I'm doing and I don't want to mess it up. Like this is kind
right.
of important. So that was like a taste, like writing a chapter in a book. I recommend anthologies to people because I'm like, if you're unsure, if you want to be an author or you're unsure how to do something, like how to go about it, that's a nice way to dip your toe in the water without going all the way in and getting stressed about like publication, editing, and content for the book and, you know, all that
Book
stuff.
design,
So
yeah.
I was able to tell a snippet of my story there, and then I did like, I don't know, maybe like five or six more anthologies after that. And I was like, okay, after about the sixth or seventh anthology, I
Mhm.
was like, okay, I'm ready for my own book now, which
Excellent.
is the Brand Builder Blueprint. So it's Shattering Barriers in Business and Beyond, and that teaches my five-part framework on how to build a multi-six-figure brand. And that I have a little bit of my story in there, but it's more to help really women and men, whoever picks up my book, be able to build a profitable and sustainable business. So I really love that book. It's an Amazon #1 bestseller. We did
Mm.
that, which is cool. And I'm actually ready to write a new one. So um, we'll see what happens. I still have not yet finished my personal story, which was what I was working on at first. So that will come out soon. I'm like still making tweaks to it, but I think for now I'm going to stick with like books that actually benefit the industry and benefit entrepreneurs.
Yeah, yeah, wonderful. Yeah, salute you for that. And it's a similar path for myself. Last year, I dipped my toe into the anthology world, so I contributed a chapter to a bestseller, and it was quite a process, right? Of just it was essentially my life story in 5,000 words. I'm like, how do I condense like
Mm-hmm.
decades into like these short amounts and picking out the most relevant things in my path and my journey up to this point. But it was also it helped me with my keynote of like sharpening, all right, I got to get to the point in these talks or and also tying in the lesson and making it relevant for an audience. So essentially going to hear my story, but I want them to find their story within it. And
Yeah.
that's I think a unique skill that I think we all have, but it also it's like muscles, right? You got to exercise, you got to flex it, you got to develop it. And I love what you're doing with the brand builder uh, blueprint. So can you walk me through that? Because you touched on it before. You have a TV show, a podcast, and this is a program like kind of all underneath this umbrella. So help us get a better understanding of that.
Yeah, so I kind of just like I use my framework and I kind of infuse it into all the different content that might go out into like either the show or the podcast or the coaching program. But my 5 part framework is strategy, storytelling, scale, sales, systems, and scaling. And those are the 5 points that we use to build our business strategies at the head. So like the foundation is strategy. Like if you don't know where you're going in your business, you're going to go anywhere, right? We don't want to be the Walmart um, of brands. Hey, I'm not knocking Walmart. I go to Walmart, but like that's not what you want to be when it comes to attracting premium clientele and having a premium product. We want to think more Louis Vuitton.
Mhm.
Like we want to be in that mindset when it comes to building a multi six figure brand. So um, strategy and then storytelling because storytelling encompasses your brand story, your personal story. How did you get here? Why are you doing the thing that you're doing? And why should other people care about it? Right. So storytelling, and you're going to tell your story, especially if you're into speaking, a lot of different times. But people connect with story. Storytelling is the oldest form of entertainment, and how knowledge is passed down. So people love a good story, and they really want to know. Like people don't buy like the product; they buy the person, they buy the people, right? So they buy into you first before they ever buy your product. And if they don't know your story, it's hard for them to connect on a human level, human to human. Like, are we similar? And I think if you tell your story, you'll find that there's more similarities than there are differences amongst us, no matter what color you are. Um, then there's sales, the word that if you either love it or you
Ah,
hate
ah, not
it.
sales.
But it is the foundation of your business. If you don't have any sales, you don't have a business. By definition, having a business means exchanging, goods and services for currency. So you got to make a sale by definition. Like that's business. And just teaching people how important that is, not only just to sell itself, but also the process to by which you're making these sales and the overwhelm leaves if it's automated or if it's on repeat, at least a portion of it, so that you don't have to like worry about where my next paycheck is coming from. Um, then there's systems, which again, my whole thing, the whole engineering background is here. It's like, look, we have to have a system pretty much for everything. How you do everything from, how you clean. So just take back to my brick and mortar. Like, how do I clean? How do I close up the register? How do I open? Um, how do we teach? How do we run staff meetings? How do we run meetings, period? What's expected? Like all these things have systems. How do we sell? um, what happens when someone comes in the business? So taking it to the online space, what happens when someone first encounters your brand? Does anything happen? Do you have a lead magnet? What happens after they get the lead magnet? Nothing. Do they just go off into the black hole? Like we don't know. So having an email sequence that maybe nurtures them, maybe you reach out to them. Do you extend some type of an invitation for them to either get on a call with you or come to a masterclass, come to an event? What's happening there? Um, but having these systems in place and having them be repeatable means also now you have what I like to call good data. So now you can make data driven decisions on what to do versus guessing like, oh, I'm just going to try this because this didn't work. Well, why didn't it work? Right? We have
Yeah.
to we have to kind of be
And
little
how do you even
little
know
yeah
it didn't work? But
investigators
yeah.
into our processes. And if you don't have that, if you don't have it somewhat automated, your ability to collect data will be limited, and then your ability to make data driven decisions will be even further limited. But you really won't know because a lot of people are like, oh, it's what I'm selling. It's probably not what you're selling, it might be how you're saying it. Or maybe it's not even that, especially if you're getting leads. Maybe it's someplace in your funnel that maybe that language is off. But if you don't have those in place, you're not going to be able to evaluate it at each step where the drop off is and how you can make it better. So I'm like, there's value, even though they might be scary, in knowing your numbers and making decisions based upon that. And then scaling, of course. once you have your systems in place, you can then scale those at a higher level so you can increase your income, but you're not recreating the wheel. But you can't scale a broken system, which is why systems is first. So, um, because you got to have that in place, it's got to be working for you, right? People are like, how do I add an extra 100 grand to my business? My first question is, what systems do you have in place? Like, can your operational capacity handle that increase? What does that actually mean? But without having the systems in place, you can't even see what effect that would have. Like, if you have 100 customers today, what would 200 do? But you can't even like evaluate what that might be, how much team you might need, how many resources you might need to still deliver at the same level, which is really important, especially when it comes to your brand. Always want to deliver with excellence. Like, are we going to need more people to do that? Or are we going to be, at a deficit being late with things? Is the customer service going to go down? You can't measure that if you're kind of just guessing every step of the way. So that's what the framework is. That's what I teach, and that's the kind of content that people can expect to receive when they work with me.
Right. Okay. And this actually just sparked another question in mind. I would love you to kind of, if you can, like share what are some of the different challenges or differences you've noticed as a leader with running an online business versus a brick and mortar? Like, what are some of the things that you're like, this challenge here I wasn't really expecting this in this doorway, right? Like, can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, I think the challenges actually evolve over time. So, like before COVID was a little bit different than what it is now, or I would even say maybe worse. I think the challenge for everybody, no matter which space, is going to always be staffing. Just because uh, finding staff that are the right fit can be a challenge, right? And I always say hire people for attitude, because you can't fix a broken attitude. You can work on work ethic. But if somebody's not going
Teach
to be loyal to
skills.
your, yeah,
Yeah.
you can help them build the skill set that they need to do what's needed. But like if somebody already has a piss poor attitude about you, your brand, or what they need to do, that's not something that you're going to be able to fix, and that's going to come across when they're doing their work. Culture fit to me is the most important. So if you're not going to fit the culture, it's a no go for me. I think brick and mortar wise overhead is something that people, even though we know we have it as a brick and mortar business owner, people drastically underestimate it. In every, doesn't matter what you're doing, restaurants, um, fitness, or like any type of store, retail, they drastically underestimate the true cost of having an overhead. So the cost of the space that you're in, the utilities, um,
Ends, paper
maintenance.
clips, toilet
Yes.
paper, like
Yeah.
it
And
adds up.
the importance of saving towards an emergency, a sink fund. Like, okay, because this has happened to me, like plumbing issues, the HVAC goes out, somebody's kicked holes in, I mean, because what we do, people's kicked holes in my wall, like just it's like, wait, what happened? You know, just anything. So there's always gonna be that. So I think that that's definitely a challenge. And I think social media, for both, but in different ways. So in the brick and mortar space, and when I go into places that are primarily brick and mortar, usually it's the boomer generation and up. That's in that space. So I'm usually one of the youngest people in the room. It's a little interesting. So, they don't like social media. They don't feel like they should have to do it, especially if they've been in business for a long time. And so they can't quite make the shift. And that is always an interesting conversation. Like, yeah, we finally got a page up, but we don't put anything on it. I'm like, yeah, and I was like, you're missing opportunity on a lot of new customers because you're not doing that. This is the way of the world. Like, remember when I was like, you were in business when when websites weren't a thing. Like, that, right? But you had to get a website at some
Right.
point. So now you got to do social media and it's changing rapidly. Um, so for that group, for the brick and mortar group, it's like having to do the social media. I would say also for online spaces having to do the social media, but then there's a misconception of needing to be on there all the time. So like not like allocating your time accordingly to revenue generating activities. Being on social media does not make you money. Like literally just being on there, scrolling, going live, like to a certain extent, right? It has its place, but like that is not an everyday activity. Like connecting with people and your people that are connecting with you is going to be ultimately what's going to drive your revenue. And again, systems. I think even like both realms need systems for different reasons. But definitely in the online space because like you can go like let's say you have something that goes viral and everybody's like clicking on this link or commenting and you don't have automation in place, you are potentially missing out on hundreds of opportunities because someone was really interested. So it's like a catch 22 there. I think both groups don't want to do it, but then like there's I gotta be on there all day, I gotta be on all platforms, and then there's the I don't want to do any of it and don't talk to me about social media. Um, so yeah, I think there's it's just challenging in different ways. That was actually one of the things that surprised me the most coming into the online space, being in brick and mortar first. I was like, why y'all on social media so much? Like, we definitely don't put that much emphasis on it, but it's important. And I think that the misconception that the number of followers you have equals your revenue, I was like, that's completely not true. I was like, I'm not focusing on followers, I'm focusing on customers. Like, and that's the first thing I tell people is just because I was like, are you actually generating income or are you generating entertainment? Which one do you want to do? If you get really good, you can do both. Yes, it's possible. I've seen it. I know examples of it, but like in general, you need to be focusing on income. And if no one knows what you do, you dancing on TikTok and you doing stuff that's not really related to your brand. You posting of yourself eating food and all this other kind of stuff. Pictures of your toes on the beach. That's great, but like, what do you do? Like, so having that conversation and like modeling themselves after someone who's further along in business. So like, you have to operate at the stage that you're in. Like, it's like you're not on a one name basis right now. You're not Oprah. You're not Beyonce. You're not Sting. You're like you don't have a one name, right? So until you get a one name, you can't post with everything that you want. That's not how this works, right? People need to know what you do every single time they land on your page until you get there. So having that conversation of like, well, such and such does this, and I really like looking. Yeah, you like looking at her content, but that's also an eight-figure entrepreneur. There's no question about what she does. She already has networks and systems in place that continuously bring her income. But no one knows who you are and why they should buy from you. So if I can't find that out in the first 8 to 10 seconds, I want to the next person where it's clear what they do, who they are, and who they serve. So I think because brick and mortar has an advantage of like we have a sign, a storefront, right? Online, your social media is your storefront. That's your virtual storefront. And so it's pretty clear usually from a brick and mortar what people do, right? But for online, clear as mud a lot of times. And people don't use clear verbiage and they oftentimes they aren't even sure. So the importance of making sure that that is clear is a challenge, I think, for a lot of people, and that also is a tough conversation to have. It's like, look, I don't know what you do. You can call yourself like the big time coach guru. I'm like, what does that even mean? Who do you help, and why do I care about that? Why do I like? You can call yourself what you want to call yourself, but like, if I'm googling, I'm not googling this type
Right.
and like trying to get that message across. Once you've made it, call yourself what you want. Literally, it won't matter. Tony Robbins, everybody knows even if they are unfamiliar, like at a deep level with what he does. If you say Tony Robbins to my older generation, you say Anthony Robbins, they know who you're talking about, right? They know who you're talking about. There's no mistake.
Right.
And it's like, oh yeah, that self help guy. If you remember, like I don't know how long this is ago, but I do remember this. He was like used to walk on hot coals. Do you
Yeah,
remember
yeah, yeah.
that?
I remember that. Yeah.
like, I forgot about that. Somebody mentioned it. I was like, you're so right. But yeah.
Yeah, it's the thing that we get to be known for, we get to stand out about. And you know, speaking of speaking, right, as we get close to wrapping this up, I'm gonna give a quick acknowledgement shout out to Brian Knowles and the Black Speakers Network, because that's how you and I connected here. So when you are speaking, you're going around and presenting. Yeah, tell us about those audiences. Are like, what are you speaking on, or where are you speaking? And is it for associations, conferences? Like, what is the sweet spot for you?
Yeah, so I do both in-person and virtual podcasts, so things like this. To me, you gotta, so like people sometimes limit their mind to what a stage is. A stage is not always in person. And so um I'm doing in-person conferences, I'm doing virtual summits, I'm doing podcasts, I'm doing creating my own stages, so master classes, my own events. So I think you have to be a little bit more creative about what a stage actually is, in that regard. And who's usually at the places I speak are either it's a women entrepreneur type of conference or just an entrepreneur type of conference setting, that I typically speak in. I am looking to go corporate this year, 2025. That's a goal, to kind of get back into the corporate space and probably focus on leadership. I think that's going to be where my focus is. But normally it's entrepreneur audiences and helping them to. I usually talk about lead gen, so lead generation, and systems is what I talk about, and then multiple streams of income. Um, and just if I'm teaching any workshops or breakouts, it's usually around lead generation and just how to turn your content into something that's evergreen, and like really focusing on that concept and how it relates to having a system so that you don't have to work as hard in your business. Work smarter, not harder, and just how that translates to sales. Like a lot of people, they don't break it down. They either give you the front end of it, the back end, or the middle. They don't put it all together so you can kind of see how everything works behind the scenes. And so, really breaking that down for people to make it easy for them to understand and understand why they need all the pieces. You can't just invest in one part of the system. It's kind of like, I don't know, walking around with like half an eye, half a leg. Like you just kind of have half of your body that you're trying to
Yeah.
operate half along. Could you do it? Yeah, people do it all the time. But what would it look like if you were like walking around at full capacity, operational capacity? What more could you do? And people not understanding why their business is not getting the results they want. Yeah, it's because you like have half of a system in place and you think that that's going to work for you. So giving them the full picture so that they understand why it's important.
Love it. I appreciate you. Appreciate the real talk, the real honest perspective of what entrepreneurship is, what leadership looks like. And for anyone who's looking to connect with you, we're gonna have the info in the show notes, but where can we learn more about you and your work?
Yeah, you can connect with me on Instagram at I_simply_she, LinkedIn at Krystal Vernee, Facebook at I Simply She, and visit my website, www.isiemplyshe.com.
So appreciate you. It's been an honor, pleasure to elevate and celebrate you. And for you watching, for you listening, we'll be back next month with amazing guest content. And so stay tapped in. Until next time, y'all. Thanks for watching this episode. If you got value from this, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. And feel free to connect with us at bipoccc.org. See you next time.